with you. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. The word GIF. How do you pronounce that? The animated moving image that you might find on the internet.
GIF.
Spelt. You say GIF?
GIF.
GIF. I instinctively say GIF, but I have taken recently to saying GIF. Because it's definitely not GIF. It's definitely not GIF.
How do you know?
The bloke who made it says, oh, yeah, it's pronounced GIF.
Oh.
It's not pronounced GIF. It's not. I don't care what you say. Bloke who invented GIF.
I've
right?
reclaimed it.
I've reclaimed it. It's GIF.
Gif.
It's GIF.
I'm going to call it
GIF.
a GIF. There's no E on the end, but...
GIF.
Hey guys, I thought it was really cool. GIF.
I'll be there in a GIF.
I'll be there in a GIF.
I'll be there in a GIF, yeah. Sure, that's what we should all be saying now. I'll be there in a GIF. I'll be there in a GIF. How are you, Baker?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm alright, mate.
So, I want to talk about, considering that, we don't really know how the podcast is going to go from episode to episode and how it's going to correlate, but we'll soon find out. And we were, on the first episodes, seeing how you were getting along with your direction in life. Hence, Pelorus.
Hence, Pelorus.
Pelorus podcast. Give it a hashtag. I've just given it its first hashtag today, so
that's exciting.
Smash that.
It's exciting. I should probably make an Instagram account for the Pelorus.
Yeah.
It's got its own Twitter, but I only ever post there when I release a new episode. I should probably be more active on that and try and be like talking to other podcasts and be
I never use Twitter anymore. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Because every time I go on it, I used it exclusively when the last elections were on. And
I feel like you should come back on it.
Football. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now's the time. My Twitter is now my angry voice again. So, yeah, what have you been up to for the last couple of weeks?
Work's been really busy. Been doing lots of overtime at work. Like getting in early and leaving late and stuff. They do pay us for the overtime though, which is nice. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like forced overtime or anything. But I mean, it is kind of, they're like, we'd really like you to stay, which is like guilt tripping you into staying, which is fine. Like, I don't mind working the extra hours, but that's kind of left me with very little time otherwise. And I've sort of, I don't know, like it's an easy excuse to say, oh, I've been busy at work, and like I'm probably falling back on that more than I should. Like I haven't been pushing this as hard as like I really should be.
Yeah, I find I get like that sometimes if I've been working a lot. I'll come home and then, I mean, this week particularly, I've been up till stupid hours in the morning, like doing a gig or going to a show or whatever, stuff like that. So I was absolutely knackered last night. But I do find that if I've got the day off the next day, sometimes I'll just say, oh, well, I'll do this stuff I need to do tomorrow because I've got the day off, and tonight I'll just chill out, which I guess kind of makes sense, but at the same time, if you really want to get ahead, I suppose.
You got to put the craft in, you got to put the effort in. Which
is what we were talking about in the last podcast.
Yeah.
So, I've recently purchased a interface and my first microphone, so I think we mentioned that. I mentioned that a little bit in the last one as well. But I figured that I'm very scared of technical stuff, technology. So now's the time that I need to relinquish that fear and just get over it and do it. And so I can understand production more, so I can understand certain aspects of music more. I just need to learn how to do it, really. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. That's exciting. It might mean I don't have to come to your house every time I want to record a podcast.
Well, it'd be a shame.
It would be a shame. It's always nice to...
It's not enough budget.
No. Cutting into the Pelorus, What's the word for it? The sugar daddy money
Yeah.
that funds this podcast. Yeah.
No.
Our secret foreign investor. Yeah.
I wish. Cheers. And also this week, I was playing a gig that I do semi recently, maybe once every month, or it depends when they crop up. Really, they're not really sort of written in stone when I do them, but it's basically this certain gig at a certain club/bar that I play on the bottom floor of, right next to the smoking area, that has just got
Nice.
the worst PA system you've ever heard. Like, it will distort just of its own accord, and the equipment's all sticky because obviously it's on the bottom floor of a club. And I mean, in the winter when I've done it, because it's essentially playing outside, your hands are freezing. And like, if I don't touch the guitar, if I put the guitar down and when we're having a break, I pick it back up again, the guitar is ice cold. Like, it's really that bad. So now I'm in the habit of, like, every time we stop playing for like 5 minutes to have a little break, I'm always just still there, sat there holding the guitar. Even now when it's a bit warmer, that's just become my habit. And I think we're sort of making a conscious decision that we might not do these gigs anymore, because I mean, it's all fair and well when it's 50 quid and you're a student, and 50 quid's a lot of money. But when it's
becoming less a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. When you can be paid more and treated better, I suppose,
yeah,
from different venues and different employers, you then sort of weigh it up and think, am I enjoying this? Are the conditions are good? I mean, literally, I've got a sore throat because, I mean, what day is it today?
Monday.
So I did the gig on Saturday night, and I could never really feel it as much through a Sunday because I was working, so I was sort of just powering through, and it was the tiredness mainly. But I've got an absolute bugger throat, and it's probably because I was smoking the whole evening. And it wasn't primary smoking, it was second-hand smoke, just breathing it in all night. And it just clings to my clothes, and yeah. It's not the most glamorous of gigs, that's all I can say. I mean, I might do a couple more, but yeah.
That's an interesting point you raise around, like, knowing your worth, almost. Like, you think you're, like, the conditions and the pay you're getting there aren't enough to keep you coming back when you could do, like, probably better paying gigs in better conditions. I
think the thing is, places like that are right next to a uni full with music students, is they're always going to have people playing there.
Yeah.
And people are always going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to get paid and then I can go out and get drunk afterwards. And it's like, fair enough if you do that, but for me it's more of a profession, and I've got stuff to do the next day, so I'm not really planning it around that. I don't ever think that I'm above that. Like, if I needed to do that, I'd do that. I'd do those gigs. Yeah, I think you get to a point where if you've been doing it for, because I guess I've been doing it for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, with a couple of different people. But obviously it's not regular. So if they said, oh, it's every month on this day, then I guess it would be more agreeable. But it's sort of as and when they need people. I'm not really prepared to ruin my sleeping pattern for the next week and get ill. Yeah,
to get ill. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm literally I feel a bit ill today, and last time I did it, I was properly ill for like the week, because it's just a mixture of like me just breathing and all that crap, and then performing at that time and having work either side of it in the mornings. It just no sleep, and that just really
doesn't sound ideal.
No, not great. But obviously there's good aspects to it as well. It's quite fun. Doing what you enjoy doing and you're getting paid for it, essentially. So, but I guess a little cheeky little segue into the next section, the next question or quote I saw recently is, if you think sex workers sell their bodies but coal miners do not, your view of labour is clouded by your moralistic view of sexuality. So
there's a lot to unpack there. This tweet is by a Eric Sprangel, who is a assistant professor of clinical psychology and sexual studies at in Minnesota. So that's where the tweet comes from. I'll put it in the show notes and stuff. He does go on to explain a little bit more about the tweet in question, should you want to sort of dive further into it and see any of the replies, which sometimes can be just as insightful as the tweet themselves. You mentioned this to me, was it last night? Yeah. What are your thoughts about it initially, this tweet?
I mean, my initial impression or thoughts on it, I kind of agree to a certain extent. It's sort of that thing of like, how do you view sex? And if you've been brought up and it's not, either you can detach the intimacy behind it and that for work purposes, or maybe you didn't ever find it that intimate of activities or whatever, then maybe you can sort of agree with the tweet. But because coal miners, they end up retiring and their bodies are practically ruined.
Yeah,
like, physically, they there's people like labourers that I know that just like their hands are not, they can't move their hands in a certain way, or they've got a really bad back or stuff like that. They've been damaged from years of like hard work. And I guess, I mean, it's not like a prostitute is going to be physically damaged after years of it. I don't think anyway. But I think it's just, to what degree do you think, or it is a rather, like it says, moralistic view of selling your services or your body in some ways. I think just because you've got your clothes on doesn't mean that you're selling your health, or you're in a way they're giving you money for you to labour away and eventually destroy certain aspects of your physical self.
I think I initially disagreed with this tweet in that I thought coal miners didn't sell their bodies, but like the more I'm thinking about it, and like I'm trying to come up with arguments as you're like talking away there, like in my mind, as to try and say why I disagree with it. And the more I'm just sort of winding up back at night, no, I do actually agree with it.
Yeah.
I initially thought that, let's go run you through my thought process, that like sex work and coal mining are very different things. In that, like, coal mining, you're using your body as like a tool. At least in like I'm not deeply intimately familiar with coal mining. Like, perhaps it's changed now when you're not literally at the coal face, as it were, with like a pickaxe. But like that's sort of the idea I have in my mind. It's probably changed a lot since then. And like there is still coal mines, and they probably use dynamite more. Yeah, and it's still very probably physically taxing and stuff. Whereas like sex workers are kind of, maybe it's wrong to say selling their bodies, but like renting their bodies out, as it were. Yeah. Because you could argue for the period when they're like engaged in the activities, they sort of lose control of their body necessarily. I mean, it depends on the interaction, like on the individual and how they conduct their own work, but they sort of get control of their body back eventually, like after the event, if you were. Like, they get back, whereas coal miners, I don't know, don't? I don't know, but they do as well.
I guess the thing is that both of them would be in control of what they do, in theory.
In theory, yeah.
Like, I don't really know how it works if you're, like, a sex worker. Like, at what point...
They do say many don't have control, like, they sort of fall into it, or they're trafficked into it. But assuming... Because like where he goes on to mention a moralistic view of sexuality, I assume he means that, because this guy advocates for like sex workers' rights, or like workers' rights, essentially. So maybe he's under the impression that they do it of their own volition.
If you think about it from the mindset of where it's legal and where there's like safe places where it happens and stuff like that, like, I saw like a TV program about it like a little bit a while ago, where it was all at like like this massive house, and they were, the blokes who were coming in were given like protection, and it was all done professionally, so that there was actual pay, and the workers were protected, all that sort of stuff. So I mean, if you take it from that, I mean, I think that they'd probably have more control over their own body. You see what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to get your head round, I think. But because obviously I don't work in them.
I am neither a coal miner nor a sex worker. Yeah. Because I suppose coal miners sell their bodies over a longer period of time as well. Like if you go coal mining once, have you sold your body in the same way that someone who prostitutes themselves once has sold their body? Like it's a different kind of transaction and a transaction over a different time scale. In that, am I selling my body if I do any type of manual labor, or is it specific to coal mining because it's particularly intensive?
I think it is definitely like a social thing as well, that it's looked down upon because sex is supposed to be something like intimate for your partner or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like there's a large portion of society that sees it as like a fun sort of thing, and like, you know, there's more and more single people, and it's more of a lifestyle thing. But at the same time, selling it is still.
I mean, one, it's criminal, really. Like, it's technically illegal, isn't it? I suppose.
Here it is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like coal mining isn't.
It's on the decrease, definitely. What with, you know, our move away from coal as a fossil fuel. And there's obviously a lot more stigma towards, like, people kind of have a respect for coal miners, even though that is, they're mining coal, which literally destroys the planet. Like, they're held in a higher regard than prostitutes would be.
I guess it's a resource thing as well. People are like, oh, you get...
We need coal. We don't need to have... prostitutes, I suppose, but
maybe the prostitutes can sort of detach it from work into their own lives, like they're two separate things. So, from what I was saying before about me playing, I mean, it's a vastly different circumstance, but sometimes I'm sort of on autopilot if I'm playing a gig, if it's like just a function gig or something like that, and I'm just playing tunes that people are going to want to listen to, like pop tunes, top 40 tunes or whatever. Then it's not necessarily music that I connect with. So that's the whole reason why I do music, is because it's something that, in a way, is intimate to myself. Like I connect with music, and that's why I do it. But for that sort of gig, it's like I am just getting money to play stuff that doesn't have much meaning, if you see what I mean. So that's why I'm on autopilot. So maybe it's a similar situation where they don't necessarily think about it as much. Because I don't, I think it's a view that they may be like dirty, or it should be reserved for something else. But then you could say the same about other stuff to a certain extent. Well, when I say to a certain extent, there's a lot of musicians who have got the mindset of you need to make your living off of the stuff you love doing, or you need to be creative with it, or don't play function gigs, don't do acoustic tunes, don't play in restaurants, that sort of thing. You got to do it for yourself, all this sort of thing. It's like, well,
that's nice when you're making millions and you're a world famous artist. Yeah,
exactly. So, sometimes people are going to pay okay money for someone to come and sit in their restaurant, or come and play at their venues, or their wedding, or whatever, for you to play some tunes that everyone knows that they're just going to sing along to. I guess if you view it in the same way, because it is work, I'll go home and play guitar then for pleasure, or, do something creative with it that I won't get paid for. You could sort of view it in the same way that the work is something unrelated and their heart's not in that.
Yeah.
Even though it can be considered a intimate thing.
So there's a big discourse, particularly on like the left, in that I probably mentioned last time that I'm quite a fan of the communist memes Facebook page, and like a frequent memes. A frequent phrase that they tend to use is like wage slave, and you could argue that in essence the like coal miners are indeed selling their body for a wage. Like, I don't know where I was going with that. Somewhere important, definitely. Don't we all sell our bodies for like a wage, really? Like, I
mean, even working in I think anywhere you're working that's not your career, or it's not what you want to be doing. I think you're selling your services basically to a company, and they're using you to then make a profit. Yeah. So whether you're working in retail, I think that you're going to get paid whatever you get paid, but they're using you as a tool to sell. And then the same with a coal miner. They're using you
to sell coal,
or to get the coal in the first place,
so they can
or produce the coal. So if you're sort of saying that you're selling yourself for money, I guess everyone who's doing something that they are not self-employed or they're not doing it as their thing that they enjoy. You are selling your services, I guess you could say, because it might not necessarily, you might be working at a desk or something like that.
Mm.
But you're still selling your hours and your work and your focus for that amount of time for money.
It's actually an interesting point that we can bring back to our discussion last time around boxers. Do they sell their bodies in like the same way that a sex worker or a coal miner might, with their repeated concussion to the head, or like other pro athletes, other sprinters, footballers, people like that? Do you reckon this person would argue that they are selling their bodies in the same way, or do you think it's completely different?
Isn't he a professor, did you say?
Yes, he is a professor of clinical psychology and sexuality studies, rather.
I guess, but I think with boxers or certain athletes, I mean, the thing is, football in particular as a game is now being more and more geared towards people who are trying to make money out of it, as opposed to those who truly love football. So you see more and more people move into China or the US or stuff like that with leagues that aren't as competitive or as prestigious, but they make a lot more money over there. But I think even boxing and football, stuff like that, you've still got a level of creativity and personality in it. So I think they're not necessarily doing it just to make money, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I think the majority of them...
Most footballers and boxers would probably do it for the love of the game. At least that's how they get there initially.
Yeah. Talking about sexuality, I mean, would that be the same if it was if you were referring to prostitution from a man? So a male coal miner and a male prostitute? Would you say the bloke is selling themselves as much? I think there's definitely an image of a woman giving that up is...
it's because of the way we tend to understand sex, I guess.
Yeah,
definitely. There's always that metaphor that people bring up about like a shitty lock and a master key or whatever, which I hate
that. I hate that so much. I've literally seen like women agree with that on Facebook, and it's made me like angry. I'm like, do you understand what is going on here? Like, you do realise that although you think that's like the cool thing to do, or well, I don't know how they understand.
Look, men, aren't I relatable? I'm like you, is like the vibe that I get from it. Yeah. I mean, maybe they do believe it, and like that's just internalized misogyny. They're like, they hate themselves. I think that's what it is, yeah.
I think, but they don't recognise it as misogyny.
Yeah.
I think, which, I mean, that's half the sort of problem.
Exactly, yeah.
But when I see that, I'm just like, come on, like, you do you not see how that demeans you as, like, a sex? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's a great little link in something that happened to me this week.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking with a female colleague at work, and I think something along the lines of just saying about her having the bollocks to do something, or the balls to do something. And then she said, obviously, I don't have balls, so... And then I said, well, metaphorical balls. And then I stopped myself, because I just realised... I turned around and said, but we definitely shouldn't use that as a... Because, I mean, a lot of people would go, oh, yeah, she's got bollocks or whatever.
Yeah.
Or when talking about, like, Thatcher or someone equally as awful. But then, I sort of corrected myself and thought, well, I mean, having that attitude implies that the male genitalia is bolder or more courageous or has more meaning than a woman's. Which obviously, if anything, it's a lot... I
mean, it's almost as wrong as you can be, I suppose. It is really interesting, like, the way we use language like that. Like, I don't think it's anything you can kind of change, necessarily. Like, it's so sort of ingrained in culture.
Like, you don't realise it. Like, you think... it's almost the point where you think that, like, in my mind as well, that saying that in the first place was almost like a compliment.
Yeah.
Like, you almost have that sort of privilege as, like, saying, oh, well, you know...
Oh, you're like
me. You're almost as good as a man.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, this is so wrong. Like, as I thought about it, or just after I said it, I was like, nah, this isn't like... I'm only just realising... Because, I mean, I hadn't used that phrase for so long that I think now that I had, it was then brought to my mind, and I was thinking, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's a bad bit of language right there. I mean, even use it on other men, to a certain extent, is still, like...
And then you're almost demeaning them if you... Yeah. Like...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of how we're just going, yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever's
I agree,
listening, they just know what we're talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
They get what we're
Fill in
trying
the
to say.
gaps, yeah. Like, what alternatives... Like, have you got any alternatives? Like, in that particular situation where you're like, oh, yes, that was... Because if you don't say, oh, you've got bollocks, like, that's kind of like a I'm going to try and say it. Colloquial? Colloquial? It just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Colloquial? Like, because if I said, oh, that was very brave of you, like, that sounds a bit
Doesn't
like...
have the same
full,
sort of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a... Oh, yeah, you've got guts, or that was... Yeah, I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
There's kind of no... But it doesn't have the same punch as, like...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's...
Cool, that takes some bollocks, you know? Like, it just does... Cool, that takes some guts. I mean, I guess it kind of does... I don't know. Depends.
I see what you mean. Doesn't have the same impact.
No.
Bravado.
I don't think there's any way around it, though, really. I mean...
Stop saying it.
And likewise, when the foot's on, like, oh, don't be such a pussy, like...
Yeah. That's the other half of it, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Demeaning.
I also don't think there's any viable alternatives for that either, because any other sort of similar words are also kind of, like, homophobic. Like...
Yeah. And then if you...
there's don't be such a chicken, which is kind of childhood playground sort of sounding.
But then you also have ones like being a girl's blouse or being such a girl about it. And then you just think about that for a second and you're like, that's just terrible. That's the worst thing. Oh my god. Yeah. So what do you want? Sexism or homophobia? To insult your friends with. Well, even
what would you prefer?
Yeah, even down to the word where people call each other gay or stuff like that, and it's like, so that's an insult. Yeah.
I think largely we have moved beyond using literally the word "gay" as an insult.
Yeah,
I still do occasionally see it on like Twitter and stuff, like but like I think most people like who are adults like understand that's a ridiculous like insult to still use. Like. We're getting there. Yeah. We're getting there.
I think it's almost like you kind of use it in an ironic way. I think it's like it's so convoluted, isn't it?
Yeah.
like you sort of get past the point where you know like the shock of like realizing this is really bad, and then there's sort of the meme of it. If you're just like using an insult that other people will understand, you know what I mean? Or just taking the mick out of
people who do use it. Yeah. Which I don't know if that helps or like hinders, like
probably exacerbates the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like if you're taking the mick out of someone for having that opinion, but at the same time you're wrong. So soz.
You are just as bad. What is your preferred source of news? How do you get your information?
Well, I don't have a TV license, so...
Not television.
yeah, not mainstream media.
You don't buy a paper, No.
Someone brought in a copy of The Sun the other day into work. I just looked at it and I was like, nah. Well, I did read a little bit on the back, but then just...
It's just a sport, it don't count.
Yeah, doesn't matter, mate.
They're just reporting on facts, right?
Yeah.
I need to know the scores.
Yeah, exactly. But then I got like halfway through like the tiniest paragraph and just thought I'm reading The Sun, so might stop doing that. That's actually a really interesting conversation. I read a book that was about the girl who campaigned against page free.
Oh yeah.
Have we talked about this before?
I don't think we have. No,
not on here. Anyway.
Not on here, at least.
Yeah, and one of the really interesting parts from it was when the Olympics were on.
Mm-hmm.
The image of Jessica Ennis, I think she won. Did she get gold or something?
She did, yeah. 2012, I think she won a gold, didn't she?
Yeah, so the image of her winning the gold
Mm-hmm.
was still a smaller image than that of a woman showing her breasts on page 3. So her point was the biggest image in the paper of a woman was for the purposes of like
Titillation.
of her being naked. So it's like, at what point do you put that value into her winning a gold medal?
It's such a ridiculous it is crazy that that persisted for as long as it did. I think they've basically stopped it now.
Yeah.
Well,
even for a while they got rid of it, but they still had people or women wearing like bikinis and stuff on page 3, which is.
I was like,
is that better?
Is that better? It's an improvement, I guess.
Yeah.
But I suppose this all sort of comes back to that sex workers argument we were having a little while ago again. Like it's annoying that the largest photo you see of a woman in, I think, what still is the most popular UK newspaper is like a naked woman, and they'll have a tiny little bio about what she thinks about the most popular news story of the day, and like that's it. But if she wants to be there, is that okay?
I think it's more the issue with the newspaper. So like she can do what she wants, you know. If that's her career, then good for her. Like that's great, you know. Do what you want to do. But I think it's just the fact that it's in the biggest selling newspaper. Like they choose to have that as literally you open up the paper and that's the first thing you see. If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I think in a way, they have a responsibility to do something as a newspaper. But obviously, as we know, the Sun is not. It's not about being a
reputable source of information necessarily.
Exactly. I think it's more. You can always compare it to like a magazine, or like a gossip magazine. It's basically what it is. Like, oh yeah, women, yeah. Look at this story about this woman who slept with this many people. Yeah, lads, yeah. Motors, yeah.
They've almost all gone out of print now, I think. Those lads mags like Zoo and Nuts and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still making them. I might have a quick Google while you talk.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty funny because I remember, I used to work in a Londis, like a newsagent sort of thing. And among hating doing the newspapers and just feeling like I should just burn the majority of the Daily Mail and the Sun copies, there was obviously, the lads mags on the top shelf or whatever, stuff like that. But I think I heard recently that is the Zoo no longer?
Zoo is no longer.
Yeah, it's no longer a magazine.
2014, I think it stopped. What was the other one? Nuts, I think it was. Wasn't it?
Yeah, Nuts. I think that must be long gone.
2014, same. What happened in 2014? Why did they both end? This is.
They're probably owned by the same people, let's face it.
Yeah, it's quite likely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, pretty funny. I feel like this episode has been largely rooted around feminism.
Feminism. I actually bought a couple of feminist books the other day. I need to read them.
Bloody liberal cucks.
I know. I mean, that's a whole thing as well. You filthy SJW cuck. Like, why are those words insults? Like, I don't quite understand. There's such an obsession with like.
I just love using
Reddit
right-wing cuck
right-wing
on people.
Oh, no.
It's brilliant.
I shouldn't swear, but
yeah.
There's such a if you use that, like when I'm looking at comment threads and I see, this is for SJW, stupid SJW cuck, like I know exactly what type of person you are.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm not going to listen to a word you say.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you're being too dismissive, Steve.
I mean, maybe I am, but if you use cuck as an insult, like what kind of person are you? Like you beta cuck, like
you beta.
Like,
Jesus Christ.
You ever been on Reddit much?
I haven't actually.
Oh man, what a weird place. It's wonderful, but it's also awful. A lot like the internet at large, really.
Yeah.
But like the men's rights subs are almost a parody of themselves. It's really quite spectacular to see.
Men's rights.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is with like men's rights, obviously there is still some problems that women are faced with in terms of equality and definitely their role in society and how you should act as a man. There's definitely expectations of you as a man, but I feel like in general we probably get more.
We get a better deal.
We get a much better deal. let's face it. I can walk down the street and probably not get sexually harassed. I'm pretty sure that's like...
I might have been sexually harassed once in my life, I think. Whereas, like, from the people the women I follow on Twitter, they get harassed almost on a daily basis. So much, much better. Certainly in that way. And, like, the main issues for, like, men, things like, mental health awareness and it's kind of like equal rights in divorces, I think, are some of the main ones. Like the whole like, dads for justice thing.
Yeah, so that sort of thing I kind of agree with.
But like many of those issues can be solved if like we destroy the patriarchy and like we adopt more feminist viewpoints and stuff. Because the reason why there's probably such a crisis of men's mental health is because it's seen as feminine and gay to talk about your feelings. And like, why is that? Because there's this macho bravado sense that's like prevailing in the culture and lad.
Oh, let's go down to the pub and have a drink instead of actually talk to someone about my feelings. Because that always ends well. See, that's the thing though, I openly admit that I'm pretty terrible about talking about how I feel about stuff.
Yep.
And it takes me a while to recognise when stuff is bad. But I think you need to be able to, even if it takes a while, you need to be able to look at that sort of thing and be able to talk to people about it, because people just end up with mental health issues because they just block stuff,
lock it away down. Yeah.
I'm sure women do that as well.
Yeah,
but I think it's more widely accepted that they talk about it with their friends and stuff like that. Whereas blokes is just like football.
More accepted for them to have a big old cry and let it all out than
exactly
than men.
Yeah.
I think the initial question I asked you was, where do you get your news from? And you just said, not the Sun.
Yeah.
Where do you get your information from, generally?
Probably, as weird as it sounds, Facebook. As weird as that sounds. So obviously, someone over a certain age, they'll probably, if they listen to this, they'll probably think, are you some sort of an idiot? Like, Facebook, the social media site, that's where you get most of your views on. You're an idiot. That's not news. But I think that's just because of the people that I follow. So it'll be certain movements or even political parties or stuff like that. That's where I'll get the majority of it from. Yeah, I mean, it's not really as useful on stuff like Instagram, I think.
No, it's difficult to have long form things on Instagram, really, isn't it? You can't even really click links on Instagram, do you? They always have to be like in their bio. Like,
in
that's
the bio,
the one
which I can never find
click.
because I'm a technophobe. Where do I go? Twitter used to, as I said, I used it around the time of the election, but then, as you said, it's a bit of an echo chamber, and it's all very angry and little short bits of just people just saying what comes to their mind, sort of thing. And then I guess some newspapers I have followed in the past, like the Guardian, the Telegraph, I think like that, place like that. So I do see a use for newspapers, but I just don't think they're being used correctly, because they will always have like a vested interest in whatever the owner.
I was going to say, it comes down to two things: the owner's political opinions, and then whatever makes them money, because they are ultimately commercial enterprises. It always sort of baffles me that like the BBC doesn't have a newspaper. Like, I feel like I don't know, they have like a TV channel and radio and stuff like that. And
who are they owned by? Or is it not like a
government? I guess. I don't know. They're kind of separate from the government. They just receive funding from it. They're supposed to be like a completely unbiased organisation. It's always funny, like, to read BBC comment threads, because they'll get accused of liberal bias one way and then like right-wing bias by other people. It's like, they're probably being fairly accurate then, aren't they, lads? If you're both accusing them of bias, then they can't be that biased, surely.
Definitely not when it comes to covering up child sex offenders. But that's the only way where you can draw, like, definitely negative. I guess they've still got to make money.
But yeah, my main news sites or like sources are like the Evening Standard, which is free but coated in advertising.
Full page spread.
I think people are generally quite critical of the Evening Standard, but I can never quite work out why. Like, they seem moderately balanced to me. Yeah. I mean, maybe that discloses my political persuasions a bit, but...
What about the Metro?
I don't normally read that. It feels a bit tabloid to me. Do you know what I mean? Like a bit clickbaity, and I normally don't have the strength to read a newspaper in the morning anyway. So
I have found that with the Metro. Like, it almost does seem bias just because it wants to be read, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a free newspaper.
they're trying to get
it
the views in.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to get the likes.
Like and share.
Yeah.
Both the Evening Standard and the Metro's websites are atrocious. Like, I mean, they just run horribly. There's adverts everywhere. It's just, The only, like, I do occasionally buy the Eye as well.
Oh, yeah.
I did like it when it was like 20p.
How much is it now?
Gone up a bit now. I bought a Saturday edition. I think that was like 60p, I think. But Saturday's normally a bit more expensive. But
I remember working in, like, the newsagents, and it was 20p then.
yeah, good old days.
Triple.
Yeah, the Independent doesn't even exist anymore, but this spin-off paper, the Eye, still does. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they shut down the Independent.
Is the Independent not got like an online sort of?
Yeah, they've moved completely online now. So yeah, not releasing a paper.
So in terms of like, because that was more sort of that back Labour more sort of thing, or that sort of
it's kind of
centre left, I guess.
Yeah, Labour or Lib Dems or sort of leftish kind of.
So I guess now in terms of physical newspapers, what have you got left?
Guardian.
Yeah, and then did you say the Mirror?
Mirror is Labour leaning.
So those two, and then in terms of like right leaning, you got the Express,
pretty much everything.
Daily
else.
Mail, the Sun.
I think the Times and the Telegraph are kind of because they're both owned by Rupert Murdoch. I think who owns the Sun as well.
Yeah.
So I think they lean right. I think the Times is moderately okay though. Like it tries to be. I think the Times and the Telegraph both try to be like a paper of record, so they try not to have any political
smear
leanings.
or stuff like that.
Yeah, they try, but and in terms of online, I generally look at the Guardian, and the Daily Mail because I think it's important to understand what the Daily Mail is saying. And I don't like reading their newspaper, but I'll happily I don't even read their articles. I just look at the headlines and be like, that's what the Daily Mail is saying today. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to dignify it with a click, but I'll look at the headlines and get their viewpoint.
Their sort of foothold on the British public is quite crazy because I looked at my laptop the other day and it was like a suggested app, like alongside my clock and stuff like that. And it's like, Daily Mail. Like, no.
It's a very popular, I think it might be the second newspaper and probably the most popular online place, like the Mail Online.
Oh god, yeah, they post. I just see people reposting the Daily Mail all the time because it's not just news as well. It's like viral stuff. But there you go. This podcast has definitely been the SJW liberal Cuck episode. The bloody lefties.
Bloody lovey lefties.
Spelt with a Y.
Gordon Bennett. I mean, that's also a ridiculous insult, but the loony left, the racist right. Not all people who believe in the Conservatives and right-leaning politics are racist. That's just a disclaimer there.
Disclaimer. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's not like I hate that sort of thing either. Well, a lot of right-wing people. I think it resonates some symbols and some bits about the right wing probably resonates because of like tradition and stuff like that, stuff you're raised around. So I do see how people fall into it.
Yeah.
Or are brought up around it.
It's appealing. Like it's sort of
there's a safety I think in just if you stick with what has happened for X amount of time or important symbols or stuff like that.
I think the appeal of like right-leaning parties recently has also been kind of like aspirational. Like people don't want to identify with the Labour Party who help the struggling poor or the working poor because I'm not poor. I don't want to be poor. I'll vote for the party who looks after rich or slightly wealthier people, and then that will mean that I'm slightly wealthy. I believe it's kind of a like confirmation bias, or like I don't know what the word for it is, but like aspirational.
It's like people who are on lower income and they'll vote for the Conservatives because they don't use buses.
Yeah,
but they're still poor. And it's like, right, I understand that you don't use them, but you're still not going to benefit. Like they're like, we're poor, but we're not that poor.
Yeah.
So
I'm not poor like that.
Yeah. It's like I'm not quite on food banks, but I have to buy everything from Tesco value, and therefore you're doing all right. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's like, vote for who you want. Like, don't listen to us. We don't know anything.
They were just a couple of
Couple of whiteys.
couple of millennials who don't know anything.
Exactly.
So, well, I think in closing the SJW episode,
Definitely need a better way to end these things.
love, man.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Damn hippies.
Goddamn.
Isn't it ridiculous how like caring for your fellow human is seen as like a hippie ideal?
Yeah. Well, we live in a very individualistic society where
Yeah. No, you are right.
it's quite egotistical. And not like egotistical in the way people think of the word. It's more you live inside your head and you don't think about others.
The rise of individualism.
And the car as the symbol.
As opposed to the train or the bus.
Yeah. So get the train, you bloody people.
Oh dear.
But I do actually intend to learn to drive, so
Should probably do that at some point. Yeah.
I'm gonna need to be able to do that.
Gonna need that. I was listening to episode 3 on the train over here actually, just to make sure it sounded alright.
Really?
Yeah.
Fair enough. And if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it.
Go back and
Cheers.
watch it.
Give it a like.
Any plugs you wish to plug, Mr. Baker, before we
Any
depart?
plugs? Vote Labour. I'm joking. No, definitely don't. Maybe we shouldn't put that in there.
Oh dear.
I would say if you kind of share some of the views that we've mentioned beforehand, I feel like challenging certain views that are harmful to others is important.
Definitely.
Even I know that in the workplace it's a little bit dodgy because you don't really want to ruin those sort of relationships. But I think that is kind of what it's like. Going back to what we mentioned before, as I thought about the phrase that I just said, I think it's important to address that in the workplace as well.
Recognise your own sort of downfallings or places you can improve and work on them, and calling out other people when they're being, problematic.
Because I mean, the place that I work is quite male dominated, so I think if you're a female, it's nice to. I mean, this is talking from the perspective of a man, so obviously
take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you need to know who understands that, so it's important to say. I think not everyone's just a lad, or you don't have to pretend to.
You don't have to pretend to be in that culture, or you shouldn't have to pretend to, like that culture or support that culture.
I think it is hard though, because if you're working, I can hear some plates going. But if you're working in I don't know, a garage, and you're a mechanic, I think there's something definitely with the majority of garages that I've been to, there's definitely a culture around a certain there's definitely certain views that are carried around that sort of thing. Yeah. So it is harder. Obviously, you don't want everyone to then hate you and you constantly be in arguments. But no one's going to learn anything if no one's exposed to new information.
Do you want to plug your Instagram?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is, I think it's Alex_N_Baker.
I think.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And if you like music or guitar or just me being really pretentious, go on that. Cheers. Don't really have a Twitter, but I'll do that today actually. I'm going to make a new Twitter account.
Okay.
Try and be more active.
Social media.
Yeah, I think I'm going to delete my one because
probably can't even remember the password for it. Can you?
No, actually, I think I've got it signed in. It's just I never use it. I'll go on it and I've got 19 notifications, and it's just from people updating or
liking a really old tweet.
And then it's literally just showing tweets from 2 months ago because I haven't scrolled up and updated it. So yeah. What about you, Steve?
You can follow me on Twitter at Nevetle. You can follow the show at Pelorus Pod. I'm the same on Instagram. The show doesn't have an Instagram because it's an audio medium. Maybe we'll get an Instagram. And our website is peloruspodcast.com. We have a YouTube channel, Pelorus Podcast. You can watch stuff there. Or if you use Apple iTunes and stuff, you can subscribe to us through iTunes. If you do use iTunes, please rate 5 stars. Give us a review. Helps send us up the charts. That'd be nice. Thanks.
Cheers.
Any final words, Mr. Baker?
Cheers and stuff and thanks and things.
Cheers.